on this episode of Postcards.
Sauk Centre had a major influence on Sinclair Lewis's career. He was always, like his wife said, he was always a small-town guy.
We've gotten so many comments of people going by and beeping their horn and great job and thanks for that. It was really kind of a nice experience.
I am very proud of my whole family, and I'm so happy of the success that we're having here.
This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts, offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflection Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota. Explore hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for a great vacation or a place to hold an event. ExploreAlex.com. Tri-State Brain and Spine Institute, with locations in Alexandria, Edina, Crookston, and Maple Grove. Doctors dedicated to evaluating and treating all types of brain and spine problems, no matter how complex.
I want to welcome you to Sinclair Lewis Boyhood Home on behalf of the Sinclair Lewis Foundation. Pearl S. Buck, when she came to Sauk Centre to see this house, she looked at it and said, how can such a fiery, honest, impatient spirit come from such a plain, ordinary home? Well, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to show you this house and how this house impacted the spirit of Sinclair Lewis. That led him to go on to be one of Minnesota's greatest writers, one of the nation's greatest writers, and renowned throughout the world. Sinclair Lewis was an American author who was born here in Sauk Centre in 1885. He grew up in Sauk Centre, went to high school in Sauk Centre, graduated in 1902, went to Yale. Throughout his entire life, he wanted to be a writer from as early as 10 years old, and he did just that. In 1920, he wrote Main Street, which was the most popular novel up to that time. In the 1920s, he wrote 5 blockbuster novels. He was the Babe Ruth of writing in the 1920s. In 1930, he won the Nobel Prize for Literature, the first American to do that. He was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize 3 times. Twice he didn't make it, and the third time he rejected it. His novels were not popular because they were sweet little novels. They were popular because they were controversial. He questioned society as it was. Main Street questioned small towns. Babbitt, the business ethic of America. Aerosmith, medical institutions. Elmer Gantry, of course, was a religious satire. And then Dodsworth was about Americans abroad. But he also had books on the possibility of a dictatorship in America, and it can't happen here. The role of women in society was a theme of several of his books. Most of the women in his life were active in the suffrage movement. Both his wives were suffragettes. He had a close friendship with Frances Perkins, who was the first woman to serve on the U.S. cabinet. And a lot of the protagonists in his books, the women, were suffragettes. Carol Kennicott in Main Street was very much like his mother, Isabel. Now we're coming into the parlor, which was a popular place for the family to gather. But it was also a difficult place, because Lewis's birth mother, Emma, who was a sickly woman. She suffered from tuberculosis from the time he was born, which created a distance. She was weak, she coughed, she couldn't be as attentive as most mothers are. And she was also sent away to the Southwest to heal for 2 winters. And she came back in the winter when Lewis was 6 years old and just didn't recover. So a year after Emma died, Dr. E.J. Lewis married Isabel Warner from Chicago, a woman that he knew when he was in medical school. And Isabel was a red-haired tornado. She was 40 years old. She was glad for the opportunity to be a mother and a wife and active in society. And she organized a group called the Gradatum Society. And that was a women's group that met here in this small parlor. And she was also very active in the Carnegie Library we have in town here. She helped build that, her and her husband. Now let me take you into the kitchen. They had a coal-burning stove in the house. They didn't need wood to heat the house, but they needed a little bit of wood to run the cook stove. So his father wanted to give him something to do, teach him a work ethic, give him something physical to get him off the couch instead of reading so much. So he would order wood and have it delivered in the backyard. And Lewis had to cut wood, like sometimes a quart a day he'd be cutting wood and chopping wood. It was kind of this Abraham Lincoln experience. Now the backyard of the Lewis home also had a lot of significance in what the future author would become. Because it was back here where Lewis played. It's where he chopped all that wood that he had to chop. And there's an interesting story about this wood chopping. Because he would set up the piece of wood there, ready to be chopped, but he also had a book in the fork of a tree. So he'd read a little bit, come back, chop a little bit, read a little bit, chalk a little bit. Sometimes he'd be back here mowing the lawn, and he would mow a strip, lie down and read, mow another strip, lie down and read, back and forth. So he did a lot of reading in this backyard, which was influential. And in that reading were stories of adventure and excitement, Kipling and Stevenson and so forth. So he'd be back here, and in the carriage house they had keys. And he had a collection of keys and clothespins and sticks. And he'd have adventures out here like any young kid would do. Sauk Centre had a major influence on Sinclair Lewis's career. It gave him those values that are inherent in small town life. Although he might have been critical of some of those and satirized some of those, he lived many of them. His early novels reflect small town life. He was all of his life, his wife said, he was always a small town guy. But also he had, but he had some difficulties with Sauk Centre. Growing up, he was an awkward child, tall, gangly, acne, intellectual, and he didn't fit in with the boys. He wasn't a guy to go to a pickup baseball game. Most of his friends in Sauk Centre were like him. They were nerds, they were bookworms. They read, they dreamed of greater things. And that's what he did. He dreamt of bigger and better things. And from the time he was 10 years old, he talked about writing great novels, like the ones he had read. The Kipling, Treasure Island, and all those great stories that he read in his father's library. He wanted to be a writer like that. And he dedicated his life to do it. We all have dreams, and very few of us ever make those dreams. But he had that tenacity, that discipline to do just that. Lewis made several trips back to Minnesota, but very few to Sauk Centre. By the time he became an adult, his family was gone, his friends were gone, he didn't know that many people. And he got some kickback from Main Street and Babbitt and a lot of his books, so he didn't think he was very popular. But when he did, he was well received. The time he spent in Minnesota was primarily in Duluth, St. Paul. He taught briefly at the University of Minnesota, Mankato, Fergus Falls. He once thought about building a home near Vining in the Fulton Hills. But mostly, he was a very restless man. He was always on the move. By the time he got established in a home, he was ready to move on to the next one. It would have been nice if he could have stayed in Sauk Centre and in Minnesota, which he came back to many times, but he always left, came back and left. He loved Minnesota, he loved Sauk Centre, he revealed it in his writings, you can tell it. But he was too restless to stay, he had to move. In the very end, when he died, he wanted to come back home finally at the cemetery here next to his parents and be there forever.
Yeah, I've always been a large-scale painter. A lot of my paintings in early days were anywhere from 5 to 8 feet in dimension. So I like splashing color on there and trying to get the paint to do its thing rather than trying to meticulously paint every detail. Located in Sauk Centre, Minnesota. I grew up here. I left pretty much when my college days were over. I got a job in California painting and developing a reputation out there. I had a couple gallery shows that were successful, and then ended up getting pretty ill. Then after that, we needed some money, so my wife and I started a craft business. I did the designing, she did the business end, and kind of took off from there. I was able to pretty much pursue what I wanted after that, and now I'm back in Sauk Centre. I came back here probably about 10 years ago after my wife died, and this is home. This is where I want to be right now. I've had my days in the sun. This is the sun I want now.
We have been working on a historical mural in Sauk Centre on the wall of the building that at one time was the Belmont Hotel. We've been working on this mural project. It started last summer in 2014. We worked on it for about 4 to 6 weeks and did 4 panels of the 6 panels, and then we came back for the last month to finish the final 2 panels and add a few things to the original 4 panels.
To be a muralist, especially for this job, you had to tell a story. It wasn't just one object that you're painting like you do in a landscape or a still life. We had 6 panels to work with, and so I wanted to tell a story of the history of the town from the early days when Native Americans were there and settlers coming in all the way up to our favorite son, Sinclair Lewis. So every panel had a little different story, a little bit different time, but I wanted to make sure that there was a flow. And so we had the river flow in each panel, and the hillsides all interconnected and everything. Even though the time and the people changed, the landscape and the river were the same.
So when you look at the mural, you see it starting with Chief Hole in the Day, who was here before any of us, and he's kind of looking, we would joke about Chief Hole in the Day thinking, there goes the neighborhood. I really like what we've done with the town. I think we've given it a lot of character and all the little signs in it of all the former businesses. I look at that overview of the town more like a historical novel where it's a little bit all over the map. There might be some parts from the 20s, like the World War I soldier is riding home, but you've got cars from the 50s. So it's a little artistic liberties taken there. And then we do have Lindbergh's plane also flying over the town. If you get up close enough, you can see Spirit of St. Louis written on the side of that plane in the 5th panel.
We had a World War I soldier in the foreground writing a letter back home. And in the background then you look down and you see an overview of the town. That moves into the next picture where part of the town extends also into that one. And then there's a large figure of Sinclair Lewis looking down over the town also. It's been a lot of fun working with some very talented artists. It's different working with others rather than on your own. So you're constantly, you're getting feedback, you're giving feedback, and it makes the whole project, I think, better.
I work with a group called the Wall Dogs, and every summer we go to a small town and we paint, and it empowers the town. It brings the town together. It's community building because obviously a town has to raise money to do that. But then when we all descend upon the town to paint those murals, people come and they talk to us. They want to know what we're doing. The conversations that I hope to happen through this mural are people coming up and they'll go, well, is that Indian a real person? And you go, yeah, that was Chief Hole in the Day. So we have this opportunity for people to learn the history of the town. And they maybe would never have even thought about the history of the town, but now the mural is sparking that conversation.
We've gotten so many comments of people going by and beeping their horn and great job and thanks for that. And it was really, really kind of a nice experience. I really enjoyed it.
I think that through public art, and in particular through murals, that are more literal, they create an accessibility for people to relate visually to history and to their town and to town pride, and that is a real, just a community builder.
I think Minnesota is absolutely a great place for the arts. I mean, not only the support on a daily basis from people looking at it, but also from the different programs that do allow us to do projects, public art projects that normally would not be able to be, financed. Yeah, I do like public art, and I do want to do more of it. We have a band shell in our town park, and it's a huge structure, which would be a great venue for doing another mural. I guess at this point in my life, my art is something I'm really enjoying because I know the days are numbered, and it's just very sweet to kind of leave your mark a little bit here, a little bit there, and have fun doing it. It's just fun to be able to wake up in the morning and think of, what can I do today?
You know you can watch postcards on your TV, but did you also know you can watch postcards and other Pioneer shows anywhere, anytime using Pioneer On Demand at video.pioneer.org.
This is Tutti Frutti Market Farm in Sauk Center, and originally we started with just a produce stand like 32 years ago, and we started out with just a little picnic table underneath the oak tree out front and had a top on it, and we were selling our vegetables. It was all self-serve at the time, and it just kept on growing and growing. Within a month, we were taking all the coolers and everything out of here with the vegetables in and made this whole room here part of our restaurant. It went from, like I say, soup and sandwich, and then it went to meals by the plate. And everything that was cooked was raised on our farm here. It even started out that we were using our own beef at the time. But now that has also grown to the point that if we would use our own beef, we'd have to go through like one per week if we had to butcher it. It's growing that much. But we still continue to use our own vegetables, our potatoes, carrot, peppers, and everything, cucumbers anything raised on the farm, we use here. Minnesota is probably known for a lot of farm country, and definitely around the Sauk Center area also. Lots of dairy farmers going on, and as far as being out in the country, we're only 2.5 miles from Sauk Center, but people enjoy just getting out of town, out of the city area, city life.
Welcome to Tutti Frutti. I'm going to be doing a tour of the farm and letting you know all the different stuff and produce that we have and all the fun things that we get to do every day. I personally enjoy it. Some people may not, but I love it. This is what I get up and do every morning. I get out of bed and get ready quick. I can't say I'm late for work because my mom would know better. So it's hard to come up with excuses to be late for work when you live right here. Our main thing that we do out in the field is strawberries. Strawberries are our biggest time of the year. They run typically 3 to 4 weeks. We have 4 patches of strawberries, 4 acres. We have 1 patch over here. There's a patch over on the other side of, it's called the high tunnel. It's like a greenhouse, but it doesn't have the heat like a greenhouse would. Strawberries is my favorite time of the year, just because it's so crazy and chaotic. It'll be literally cars from one end of the driveway to the other. Some people will have to park across the street, and there's just literally people scattered everywhere. And it's just, for me, it's fun. We have a little bit of everything, basically. So we do a lot of pickle orders, a lot of tomato orders. We got beans. Like I said, this is one of our strawberry fields. You can tell the weeds have taken over because it's over and done with for the year. And as you can tell, we don't use much for pesticides and whatnot because of the lovely weeds that we have. I'll take you inside the high tunnel here. We have 2 of them so far. In this high tunnel alone, we have cucumbers and peppers, and that's the only 2 things we have in this one. But as you can see, we have the cucumber vines and we have them going. We keep pinning them up as they continue to grow, so we can stand and pick them instead of bending over. They also grow a lot nicer and look prettier that way. And yes, a cucumber can look pretty. We get a lot of customers that just compliment and say how they feel at ease and at home when they come here, just because it just has that laid back feeling. A lot of people will go in and eat, and then they'll come and walk the fields just to get that feeling back from when they were a child, childhood memories. There's people that come from the cities all over the world. We have a map, with different people that have stopped by. And you get a lot of people that come from New York and places like that, and they take pictures of the sign that says, place your money here, in the cash box, because it's not heard of around their area. I had a couple people here from New York, and they were laughing. They said if this was in New York, the cash box would be gone, the sign that says place money here, all that would be gone. So it's just it's really unique, and I really enjoy just talking with the different people and getting to socialize with them.
My favorite part of having this restaurant right now is the whole family, one way or another is involved, and I enjoy being able to just work with my own children. It's nice just being able to run your own business, and we have so much fun here that people will come into the kitchen and they'll say, "You guys are having way too much fun," because they're all laughing in there, and we're having we have a lot of fun here. My daughters are very good with the customers.
Everybody always asks why or how we're so close to each other and how we work with each other. But I wouldn't want to work with anybody else. It's just, we have fun together. I mean, you go in the kitchen and they're always laughing or giggling. You know, when you're out here, we really have fun with it. Especially when me and my sister go out to pick together, we'll throw mud at each other. We just really kind of kick back and have fun with it. It's really a good time.
My mom would always say I was cooking. I always made homemade breads and homemade rolls in the house all the time, you know, and she always says, "Girl," she says, "you've got to start selling these things." I have to say that really, after my mother passed away, that was in the back of my mind. I need to follow through with this dream for me and for her. So that's pretty much how it started. Tutti Frutti. Thanks to my mother. I feel really good about Tutti Frutti right now, how it started out with just a few tables and how we have grown. We've only been going to the restaurant for 3.5 years now. I never dreamt that it would come to this. I am very proud of my whole family, and I'm so happy of the success that we're having here.
Have an idea for postcards? Send your story suggestions to postcards@pioneer.org. This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts, offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflections Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota. Explore hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for a great vacation or a place to hold an event. ExploreAlex.com. Tri-State Brain and Spine Institute, with locations in Alexandria, Edina, Crookston, and Maple Grove. Doctors dedicated to evaluating and treating all types of brain and spine problems, no matter how complex.